Welcome back to another episode of UFC Casuals. I'm Bobby, along with my co-host Andrew, and today we'll be talking about UFC 292. Looking back at that, I'll be doing some matchmaking, talking about some more UFC news, and looking ahead at UFC Singapore this weekend. A lot to talk about. We won't waste any time. We'll jump right into the main event. Man, O'Malley shocks the world. Round two knockout, round two TKO for O'Malley over Aljamain Sterling. Not the outcome we were expecting, but given how the fight played out, if you told me that Aljo wasn't going to shoot a takedown until there was 30 seconds left in round one and not do anything in round two, I could have seen this happening. I don't know what Aljo's game plan was. It didn't make any sense. Both guys seemed pretty hesitant in round one. O'Malley seemed a little bit hesitant on the feet to really throw anything big. Aljo didn't shoot for a takedown until late. It didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and Aljo seemed to just be fighting on the outside a lot in that first round, which is not a place you really want to be with Sean O'Malley. I mean, letting him circle out and have his side movement. I mean, that's his bread and butter right there. Mm-hmm. So to give him that virtually, sure, he won the first round maybe because he was on the outside and he controlled the distance with leg kicks more than Sean threw. So I think every judge gave Aljo that first round, which I would agree with, but it was just not the right strategy for the whole fight. And it showed when he made the one mistake, didn't go for those takedowns, overcommitted on the outside, and it cost him. It was a perfect counter shot, and it dropped him right in his face.
Yeah, I think he got way too overconfident in the striking, like you mentioned. I think a big part of that had to do with who was in each guy's corner. I mean, you heard Aljo's corner saying he won round one, and all Aljo did was stay on the feet. So it seemed like, I guess, he got a little too cocky with the striking straight away from what makes him as good as he is, which is his ground game. And then O'Malley's corner, they were giving him solid advice. They were telling him what he needed to do. I think the corner played a big part in that. Aljo, I guess he got too cocky in his striking, overcommitted on that left and got caught.
The corner advice, sure, you're going to tell Aljo he won the first round. But what you really need to be telling him is, you're ahead right now, but get to what you do best. Get inside. Yeah. Do not fight on the outside with this lanky, tall guy who has the most power in the division, right? I mean, so he made a vital mistake that you can't make against Sean O'Malley, is that especially when you're going to fight on the outside with him. I mean, do not overcommit on overhands because he's going to come back with a quick shot. We know the speed. What are you doing, Aljo? He just didn't. The game plan was wrong. Straight up, it was just wrong, and he paid for it, man.
Yeah, and that might not have even been the game plan going into the fight. I think he might have just got cocky. I think he might have just thought too highly of his striking, and it cost him. So it didn't make sense. I highly doubt his in camp he was preparing to stand and trade with O'Malley. I'd be shocked if that was his game plan going into it, but obviously that's what happened. And he paid for it. It was a bad mistake, and it showed that Aljo doesn't have the striking, and I think that was a little bit of a reality check for him. I mean, you saw we mentioned the Sandhagen fight in the preview. Yeah. It's I don't know why he didn't do something like that, and I know it's that was a perfect performance from Aljo, so it's hard to replicate that. Right. But when he's fighting a guy who's good on the feet and who's lanky and tall, he cut off the cage, he got inside quick, got a takedown and subbed him. Why he didn't try to do anything like that against O'Malley made no sense to me.
Maybe the holes in his own striking got in his head, so that's why he didn't want to get in close. I mean, we talked about it. What are the paths for Sean here? The head movement isn't the best from Aljo, right? He ducks down too much. He gets it. He overcommits sometimes on the takedowns, and it leaves him open for a close shot. So maybe he just felt comfortable for some reason on the outside in this fight. He liked the distance management. He was landing the leg kicks, and he thought he could land that overhand. And he missed by, an inch, not even. And he paid for it, man. So just maybe a little bit of overconfidence. And then we have a new champ as a result. I mean, we said Sean O'Malley has a puncher's chance in this fight. And, puncher's chance it was. Managed the distance perfectly. Yeah. It was, that's striking 101 right there. And that's why he's the champ. And Aljo should get back to wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I want to touch on, O'Malley's grounded pound is unbelievable. I mean, he's so precise. So obviously, his work on the feet, he's like a sniper. He's so precise with his shots. He picks them perfectly. He lands him in the perfect spot. But when a guy gets knocked down against him, I mean, and with how tall and lanky he is, he can just shoot those arms through from so far out and just do damage. I mean, you saw Aljo; he was trying to stay as awake as possible. He tried to fight it as much as he could, but dude, O'Malley's ground and pound is just crazy. And with how lanky he is, he doesn't have to he doesn't have to fully commit and jump on the ground and start throwing hammer fists. He can stay standing up and just throw from
kind of dug down and land those long right arms, man. I mean, a couple of those. I mean, the right hands are what stopped it. The hammer fists were good, but I mean, those right hands that bounce his head off the canvas like that. I mean, those were the shots that Mark Goddard saw that and was like, I got to get in here and stop this because it's not looking good. Yeah.
I thought Aljo could get out of that. I thought he would when he looked like he had a little bit of hope that he was awake, that he was still, moving around trying to at least do something. I had hope, but man, once O'Malley started landing those shots, once they started getting through,
so accurate. 15 unanswered. You got to stop that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good stoppage. I know Sterling had a little bit to say about the stoppage, which that's just the ego of fighters. I mean, he's gonna say that. Same thing happened with Izzy, but it is a good stoppage. There's no question about it. And yeah, now we'll talk more about the matchmaking side of things in a little bit, but there shouldn't be a rematch anytime soon. I don't think. I know Sterling has a good resume at bantamweight. I know he has some good defenses, 3 title defenses. But with a loss like that, I know a lot of people are calling for an immediate rematch, but you can't lose in that fashion and then get an immediate rematch, especially with the star power that O'Malley has now.
And it's just the fact that before this fight, Aljo is saying, win or lose, I'm moving up to featherweight. And now you want to say after losing, hey, let me backtrack on that statement and get an immediate rematch.
Yeah, no.
He clearly made that statement thinking he was going to win. There was no way in his mind that he was going to lose. But you can't backtrack on that statement when you actually do lose. I mean, just move up to featherweight. You're too heavy for that division. You've said yourself you don't like cutting the weight to make that division. He
cuts damn near 50 pounds every time he tries to make bantamweight. It's crazy.
Exactly. And especially on a quick turnaround like that. I'm not saying, that had any, outcome on his weight cut, but it can't be a good weight cut for him. He said himself he hates it and he doesn't want to do it anymore. Then don't do it. Don't do it to yourself.
Man, not the outcome we were expecting. Back to the drawing board for Aljo, and we have a new champion at 135. Sean O'Malley, not words I expected to be saying.
And it's the Sugar Show, man. I mean, he is a star. The first time I've ever seen the UFC post a knockout of a pay-per-view on their YouTube channel, immediately after the fight.
Yeah.
They think this guy's the next McGregor. I mean, that video got 8 million views in a few days. I mean,
he
has the star power.
I don't know if O'Malley has the trash talking. He has good lines. He's funny. He's creative, but he doesn't seem to have that confidence that McGregor had. That loudness about him. O'Malley's funny though. He's vibrant personality. He's a superstar now, no question about it. I don't know if he'll get to McGregor's level, but the UFC is trying to get him there, as it seems.
And like you said, he's not really overconfident. I mean, he was even saying in his post-fight speech, this is the most nervous he's ever been for a fight in his life. I know how good Aljo was. I know I needed to get him out of there early. So he's not an overconfident, cocky guy, but he's just confident in himself, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Moving on to the co-main event, Zhang Weili, dominant performance against Lemos. Kind of what we were expecting. Wasn't a finish. There was times where it could have got stopped, I thought. But yeah, absolute dominance from Weili. Looked great. Proved why she's the best strawweight in the world. Maybe even the best female fighter in the world in general right now, with Shevchenko going down to Grasso earlier this year. You can make a case for that. So, but she looked amazing. Not much to say about that other than it was just pure dominance.
I mean, what was it, 280 something to 29 in the strike category advantage Weili there? I mean, that is ridiculous. It's the highest difference ever in a women's fight. Maybe a men's fight. I don't know, but it has to be close if not, because that's just so ridiculous. The ground and pound was disgusting. She got her down with such ease at times in this fight, where it was what has Lemos been training? Because she was getting in so easy with her takedowns and just tripping her in the clinch. It was just too easy. Lemos had moments on the feet. She caught her with her right hand. That was probably the one big shot of the fight. She didn't go down or anything, Weili, but there was times where she should have threw more on the feet, and she just didn't. And even, Wei Li in the 5th round dropped her with the right hand. So, I mean, just a dominant performance. I don't even know what you can say about this. Zhang is easily the most exciting female fighter, to me at least. I mean, how can you watch a performance like that and not be entertained by her, especially compared to other women's fighters? So I'm super impressed, man.
Yeah, it was an incredible performance. I do have a little bit of gripe about her, how sloppy she gets on the feet. She left a lot of openings. She got caught in round 4, like you mentioned, by Lemos. And that did worry me a little bit. She left a lot of openings. I mean, she's been knocked down before and knocked out. She lost to Rose Namajunas that way. So there's definitely holes in her striking. There's no doubt about that. But when it comes to her strength, that's unmatched. I mean, she's ridiculously strong. When she gets someone on the ground, she just puts the beats on them. The grounded pound is crazy. She does a great job fighting off submissions. Does a good job advancing positions to try and get a submission. I mean, she looked on a whole nother level on the ground against Lemos. Pure dominance.
That choke looked deep. That choke looked deep, and she kind of got off to the side. There wasn't like she didn't have the hooks in but still, I mean, to have a choke on your neck like that and survive for it felt like a minute she was in that choke.
Yeah, it was kind of like the Volk situation against Brian Ortega. I wouldn't put it on that level, but it just shows the toughness of Zhang Wei Li. She's just, man, she got that heart. I don't know.
And for such a small lady too. I mean, she is not very big. I mean, obviously strawweight, you're not going to be big, but like even for that division, she's not the tallest, but she is jacked. Oh my goodness. I mean, we've all seen that video of her picking up Ngannou. This lady has crazy strength.
Yeah, she is a little ball of muscle. I mean, she's scary in that division.
And like you said, there's holes in the striking defense, sure, but she'll take one to give 3. Yeah. And that's what you love in a fighter, where she kind of has that Max Holloway effect, where she doesn't care what you come at with her. Sure, she's been knocked out, but she just doesn't care. She just keeps coming forward. The pressure, she's so well-rounded. I love her, man. I love everything about her as a fighter.
Yeah, hell of a fight by Zhang Wei Li. Moving on to the third fight on the card, we have Ian Gary beating Neil Magny by very dominant decision. I think the first 30-24 ever in UFC history, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know if I'd give round 1 a 10-8. I mean, it was close to that, but Neil Magny had moments where it wasn't like complete beatdown as it was in round 2 and 3. So I wouldn't give it a 30-24 scorecard. 30-25 is justifiable though. It was dominance by Ian Gary. I mean, he worked him on the feet. And I think there were a couple times where Neil Magny, he had the hands together around for a double leg, but with how bad that leg was beaten up, I mean, he couldn't even power through to get a takedown or anything. His legs were so chewed up. Ian Gary was just dominant on the feet, piecing him up, beating away at those legs, landing some nice head kicks. Hell of a performance by him.
Yeah, and that's why 2 and 3 for sure is 10-8s, because the leg kicks were just wearing on him so bad. He was so injured that, I mean, it basically rendered Neil Magny useless in anything in his game. I mean, the first round, he could still move around. So it wasn't a clear 10-8 in that one. Whereas 2 and 3, I mean, I can't believe he didn't quit. The heart from Neil Magny to be in that much pain and with that left leg, I mean, I can't believe he stayed in there and got this one to a decision. And Dana White in the post-fight was like, you saw Neil Magny get the hell out of there immediately, because I don't know if he could have walked back to the locker room if he didn't run that thing off. Because, I mean, how did he not quit, man? I don't get it.
It was, a ton of toughness from Neil Magny. Yeah. I can't fault him too much for a loss like that. It was tough.
Short notice.
Yeah, short notice. I think. Yeah, was it like a week or something? It was really short notice, maybe 2 weeks. Short turnaround for him, but great performance by Ian Gary. That doesn't take away anything from him. He looked great. Still not a fan of what transpired before the fight, but I won't get in a whole tangent about that. I've already rambled enough about.
Seemed like a little fake outrage from him for no reason. And
well, I don't like how he painted Neil Magny as some violent child abuser or something for spanking his kid 1 or 2 times. It's like, all right, let's chill out on that. But in terms of just the fight, we'll focus on that Ian Gary lights out performance. Would have liked to see a finish for the highlight reel, but you can't be mad at a dominant performance like that.
And it seemed at times he wanted to fight on the outside and not getting close, maybe because of a couple of fights ago against Song Kanan, he got caught badly
Yeah.
and almost knocked out. So I understand not wanting to overcommit. I mean, especially when your opponent's leg is that messed up, just kick him on the outside and then get out of there with the easiest 30-25 we've ever seen. So,
yeah,
finish would have been great, but I get it,
Yeah. And those leg kicks had so much power. I mean, he was getting those knocked. He was sweeping the legs on the leg kicks in round one, and he was getting
The
Neil
first
Magny.
kick.
He was putting Neil Magny on the ground after the first kick. I mean, it was crazy. You could see at that point you knew the fight was over. I mean, there was not much hope for Neil Magny at that point. You knew it was going to be a pretty dominant performance. I thought he would get a finish. I was nervous watching that. I was worried for Neil Magny. I thought he'd get caught with like some mean front kick up the middle and get like Tony Ferguson or something, but he held up.
When he would just when the leg would start hurting really badly and he would just back up to the cage and kind of be rendered defenseless, I was like, why is the ref not stepping in right now?
Yeah.
Because there's no movement left in this guy's body. He's not going to be able to intelligently defend himself. That is means for stopping a fight. But, he powered through. You gotta respect the toughness for sure.
Yeah, incredible toughness. Second fight of the card, Mario Bautista defeats Damon Blackshear by decision. Questionable decision. Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it a robbery because there was close rounds, but I would not have given that fight to Bautista. And it sucks too because history on the line for Blackshear would have been an incredible moment. Now you can't score him the fight because of that, but I still think he won. I'm not even looking at it from a standpoint of me rooting for Blackshear. I just thought he won. I thought he took 2 of the rounds. Looked great on the ground. His jiu-jitsu was incredible. Those scrambles were really fun to watch. And he looked good on the feet too. Both guys were throwing some mean elbows. Overall, really fun to fight. Questionable decision, but I'm happy with what I saw.
Yeah, and Bautista has some strong punches for a bantamweight like that. I mean, his overhands are – I would not like – and I'm going to maybe get into a preview of the fights to make later, but I don't know how I would feel about rebooking that fight with Cody Garbrandt because those left overhands from Bautista could surely sleep that chinless bum. Yeah. So, but, I don't think he won, but he, it was a good fight. And, it didn't deserve to be on a pay-per-view, but they delivered, and you got to give them that. And like you said, with the turnaround from Blackshear in a week's notice, you got to respect that. And good fight. Good fight.
Yeah. And Blackshear's his gas tank was starting to run on empty towards the end of the fight, but with that turnaround, you can't be upset about it. I mean, 2 weight cuts in 2 weeks, that's ridiculous. And he's not a small 135er. He's pretty big. He has to cut weight to make 135. So him taking that to a decision and arguably winning is incredible. Still a loss on his record, which sucks. But yeah, I can't be mad at his performance. I do have a little bit of questions about Bautista's performance, not being able to get a finish on Blackshear with that turnaround that he had, and especially letting it be that close of a fight with how gassed Blackshear was. Questionable from what we saw from Bautista. So I'm not totally sold on him.
Especially letting Blackshear get off to a quick start like that and probably winning the first 2 rounds. Obviously, he didn't get it. But, to give a guy who just did 2 weight cuts a quick start and get some rounds up over you, in my opinion, that was just bad fight IQ. He needed to start fast and get Blackshear breathing quickly, and it just didn't happen. So took advantage late, but and he won the fight. But did he really? So, oh well.
Oh, well, moving on. We'll talk about the first fight on the card, Chito Vera versus Pedro Munoz. Good fight. Fun to watch. Chito actually started early. He got an early start. Didn't wait too long. I think he's starting to learn from his past 3-round fights that you can't wait the first 2 rounds to feel out your opponent. He got an early start, and his range was big.
The jab.
Yeah, the jab. He was just – Munoz looked like he was just walking into him towards the end of the fight. I mean, it was kind of – it was hard to watch. Chito looked good on the feet, looked a lot smarter than Munoz on the feet. And like we were talking about, his reach was just such a big advantage for him.
And it was good fight IQ because Munoz was not getting in close at all. So why not pick him apart on the outside with that jab? And you're not going to knock Pedro Munoz out, so don't go for crazy big shots. I mean, he's almost unable to be knocked out. His record, he has an iron chin. I think Pedro Munoz does. So pick him apart on the outside with the jab. He roughed him up with a jab. He got him bleeding and stuff. His eye was messed up. I mean, it was just a great performance from Chito. I don't know if it's a number one contender worthy performance, but it's looking like that might be what we get. So impressed with Cheeto. It was a good win for him. He needed it badly too.
Yeah, he looked smart. Yeah, definitely must needed to win. I mean, if he lost that fight, it was going to be a long road back to a title shot, if at all. I mean, at any point, which wouldn't have happened. But he gets that must needed win. Looked great. He looked smart. He started early, which is what we wanted to see out of him. That's why I thought he was going to lose this fight. I thought Munoz would, start quicker than him, and maybe win one of the last 2 rounds with wrestling. But Munoz didn't mix that in at all. Yeah, it's just a big disparity in fight IQ in this fight, and I think that was the difference.
You got to utilize the wrestling on Cheeto, and he maybe shot for one lazy takedown in the first round, it seems like, and then just never went back to it, and just got jabbed the rest of the night. I mean, it was a bad game plan. I don't know what the deal was.
Yeah, well, good win for Cheeto. Good utilization of his reach advantage there. Good performance. I wouldn't say it's title shot worthy, but in all likelihood, it's gonna be. So we'll let that segue into our next segment, UFC matchmaking for every fighter on the main card. I picked 5. He picked 5. We did a draft off camera to decide. I ended up with O'Malley, Zhang Weili, Neil Magny, Pedro Munoz, and Damon Blackshear. So we'll start with the winner in each fight, and we'll go down the board. So I'll kick us off with talking about Sean O'Malley. The next fight for him to make, I think, is the Cheeto Vera fight. With Sandhagen being out, as long as he is with the elbow problems, and then I don't think you can give it to Merab. I mean, he had his shot. If he wanted, I know Aljo's his training partner, his buddy, but you can't sit on the sidelines for that long, saying, "Oh, I'm not going to take a title shot right now," and then just get it whenever you're ready to fight someone. I know the circumstances, it being his Aljo's training partner, but man, he's got to kind of be his own man too. Let me get into that real quick. Aljo, his whole thing was, I'll move up to 145 and let Merab take over. What happened to that? I thought he was
as soon as you lose, right?
Yeah, and now Merab, he's getting here, going on interviews saying, "Yeah, I'll wait. I'll keep waiting. Aljo wants to stay in the division. I'll keep waiting." Dude, you gotta. It's your time to take over that division if you want to, but I don't think he's going to get that title shot because, number one, it'd be bad for the UFC because Merab would possibly, I don't want to make any guarantees because we just saw O'Malley beat Aljo. But we could see a reality where Merab goes out there and just clinches O'Malley for 5 rounds. Boring fight, spams takedowns, and Merab's the champion, and all of O'Malley's star power is killed. The UFC doesn't want that, and it's not going to happen. They're going to make the Cheeto fight. It's kind of a layup defense for O'Malley, in my opinion. So, debatably. I mean, Cheeto's a good opponent, but it should be if O'Malley can't get past Cheeto, that hype train was going to die at some point pretty soon. So, and if he didn't fight, if he loses to Cheeto, he probably would have lost to Sandhagen as well, given the Sandhagen Cheeto fight, how that played out. But right now, the fight to make is Cheeto, given the circumstances, the backstory. It just makes too much sense. So that's
his only loss.
O'Malley, yeah. And it gives O'Malley there's a storyline there. It gives him
some revenge.
I don't want to call it an easy first title defense, but they don't want him to lose that belt without defending it. I mean, they're going to want to build that star power, and Cheeto's the perfect guy for that.
Definitely an easier fight than a Merab or a Sandhagen after he gets back. I mean, it's probably the easiest defense O'Malley can get at this specific time, so it makes sense.
I'm with you. I'll let you take over for Aljo's next matchup.
So, Aljo, this is a tough loss. And, like I mentioned earlier when we were, recapping the fight, he said before this fight, win or lose, I'm moving up. And so I don't want you to backtrack now, buddy. For one, there's no fights at bantamweight really that, it's like a number one contender fight. Like, you're not going to fight Cejudo again. You're not going to fight Peter Yan again. Obviously I'm going to fight Merab. That's never going to happen. A number one contender fight with Cheeto doesn't make much sense. Mm-hmm. So to me, the only viable option here is say what you're going to do, say it with your chest, move up. And to me, there's a pretty winnable matchup at 145 right now for him. and he's fighting this weekend because Max Holloway, after he goes out there, and I don't want to get into our Singapore coverage too much, but Max Holloway is going to annihilate Korean Zombie this weekend. And so
would have never guessed.
Yeah, I know. But it's a winnable fight for Aljo, in my opinion. I mean, he's bigger than Max, right?
Yeah.
He is a featherweight. I mean, he can be for sure. So he can definitely wrestle fuck Max Holloway. And to me, that's a winnable fight, and it can get you on track to get that Volk fight that you just lost out on. You know, obviously, he probably would have got it immediately if he beat O'Malley this weekend. But, you know, take you down a peg, go prove yourself at featherweight, go beat maybe the second best featherweight of all time, Max Holloway, and truly earn that title shot. And that's just the perfect next fight for him is Max Holloway, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I like that matchup a lot. I think I'm with you on that. That's the fight to make for Aljo next. Moving on, talk about Zhang Weili now. Her next opponent should be Yan Xiaonan. Not much surprise there. It was pretty clear that Xiaonan would be next in line after that round 1 Andrade knockout. Looked great on the feet in that fight. I could see some openings with the holes in Weili's stand-up defense where Yan could catch her. I don't think it'll play out too differently. I think Weili will win. But I want this fight being made, and I want it on a UFC Fight Night card in China. That is the perfect matchup to make. You can, you get into a new audience in China. They haven't done a whole lot. I don't know if they've ever done anything in China. But you tap into a new audience, and no matter how this plays out, you guarantee a Chinese champion. That's all you can ask for the UFC. This is the perfect way to do it, to UFC China card. So make this fight, make it in China. I don't have much else to say. I mean, that's pretty open and shut.
And I love the idea of putting some of these women's title fights on as fight night main events. I mean, it puts more eyes on the division.
Yeah,
I mean,
it gives so much more focus to those women's fights. I mean, it gets kind of drowned out when it's put as a co-main on a pay-per-view, or even like the Nunez fight where it's a main event. People still were watching that card for Charles, but when you give it its own spotlight, you put it alone at the top of a fight night card. Where
in the woman's home country, especially, that would be huge.
Yeah. It makes so much sense. That is the perfect fight night for China. Just book it. Don't ask any questions. Let's do this one.
Yeah. And on the other end of this fight, I mean, Lemos, to get dominated like that in a title fight, you're obviously not going to probably be back in the title picture anytime soon. No. But there's still top contenders in this division that you can go after. And I'm looking at for her next opponent, a fight that's coming on, I believe, next week after this card in Paris, right? Or the week after. I can't remember. But the UFC Paris card, the co-main event on that one, Rose Namajunas is back. She's fighting Fior, right? Fior's getting a big opportunity in her home country to maybe get a big win over Rose. I mean, obviously a prominent figure. Maybe the most notable women's fighter is Rose, right? Most popular. So, whoever wins that fight, it's a big fight. It can be a number 1 contender fight for Lemos. Maybe, get her back up there soon. So maybe not even number 1 contender, but just a big win to prove that she even belonged, because we were kind of saying, and I think a lot of people were saying, she didn't deserve this, right? With Yan right there and Tatiana Suarez and even Rose, who beat Zhang Weili twice. So she can get a big notable win, and it'll make sense for her to be in this top 5 and in the title picture.
All right. I like that. You're going back to back here. We're next up, Ian Gary.
Ian Gary, right? He is the winner. Ian Gary was the winner in the third fight, so I did go first. Sorry. Ian Gary, man, he obviously called out Wonder Boy in his post-fight interview, right? We all saw that. And then Dana White says in the press conference, nah, Wonder Boy turned it down. So I don't know what's going on there. It just makes sense to put Ian Gary on the MSG card. There's always, Irish support in New York for whatever reason after the Conor McGregor, beating Eddie Alvarez or whatever, becoming double champ. It's just always become synonymous with the Irish crowd for some reason in NYC. So put him on that card. But I'm not saying schedule the Wonder Boy fight, because I don't, I think there's enough beef with this Jeff Neal thing with the shirt and just all the trash talk and calling him a pussy and stuff. And Jeff Neal's going to want this one. I know it. And I think it's a tough fight for Ian Gary. So to me, this is the next fight to make. I don't want Ian Gary's striking to get exposed against Wonder Boy next. I think Jeff Neal's a much more winnable fight for him. So, and there's beef. There's actual beef to that fight, and reschedule it. I want to see it. Make it happen, Dana. On MSG, please and thank you.
Yeah, I like that. I think after what we saw this weekend, I got to give it to Ian Gary. But I'm a lot more confident in Ian Gary going to that potential matchup than I was beforehand. I mean, that was a masterclass from Ian Gary. So, but that'd still be an exciting fight because of how much power Jeff Neal has in those hands. Yeah. So I will be talking about the loser of that fight, Neil Magny. A fight I want to see made for him. I'd like to see him versus Gunnar Nelson, someone who's a little bit outside the rankings. I'd like to see him defend his spot in the top 15. Gunnar Nelson has some loss against good opponents as of late. I mean, he lost to Leon Edwards. There's another fight he had in there that he lost that was against a top guy. So you can't really fault him for those losses. But he's coming off back-to-back wins. Be a great jiu-jitsu matchup. I'd love to watch the exchanges on the ground in that fight. See someone come out of there with a sub, most likely. I think that'd be a really entertaining fight, and Magny would be, defending his spot in the top 15. So yeah, that'd be my fight to make for Neil Magny. Not much to say about that, but it'd be a lot of fun scrambles, a lot of good jiu-jitsu in that fight. I'd love to watch it.
And it would finally be somebody who wouldn't be afraid to go to the ground with Neil Magny, because I feel like so many of his opponents just don't want to go down to the mat. So it just turns into a boring clinch match. Yeah. Ian Gary did a great job, by the way, just staying away and fighting on the outside. I don't know if we mentioned that, but avoiding the clinch at all costs, that was huge. Absolutely. And we didn't get a boring fight as a result, thank God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then we'll move on to the second fight of the card. I'll let you take it away with Mr. Cheeto Rivera.
Oh, no, Bautista, right? Mario.
Oh, yeah, Bautista. That's right. Forgot that was
Mario Bautista.
My bad. I forgot Cheeto opened the card. But, yeah, take it away with Mario Bautista.
And I kind of hinted at earlier with Bautista what I want to see, because I hate that fucking chinless rat, Cody Garbrandt, and I want to see him get slept for good and out of the UFC. So I want to see Mario.
If he got knocked out bad by Bautista, that would send him into retirement probably.
It would have to, because Bautista's not good. So, they try to book this, I guess, as a winnable fight for Cody, and I don't want to see it. I want to see Mario Bautista slump him and get him out of the UFC for good. For some reason, he was still they asked Cody Garbrandt about Sean O'Malley, and he was like, that guy sucks still. He still thinks he could beat him or whatever. For whatever reason, I don't know. So let him lose to Mario Bautista, and we can show him that the game has passed him, and he is now a chinless freak. Get him out.
Man, some big time Cody Garbrandt slander in this segment.
It's because he beat my boy Dom Cruz.
Yeah. Which didn't Dom Cruz have something going on with his health? I don't know. He had some.
I'm sure he's always injured.
I don't know. There was something going on with him, but regardless, I'm not going to take away from Garbrandt's title win. But yeah, I understand the hate. I've been there. So I'll talk about the loser of this fight. Questionably the loser. I'm not going to get on a big rant about that. Although I thought Blackshear won, he did lose this fight. He's now 2-2-1 in the UFC. So you got to give him someone low in the rankings. I'm gonna give him Contender Series alum Christian Quinones. Solid fighter. I can't say a whole lot about this fight, but it'd be a good fight if Blackshear could win to get back on track. Someone down in the rankings. I think Quinones is 2-1 in the UFC. Correct me if I'm wrong, or 1-2. One of the two. He hasn't fought a whole lot.
Correct in comments. I don't fucking know.
yeah. Neither of us know much about Christian Quinones, but I tried to find someone lower in the rankings. That's a good style matchup for Blackshear, and who knows? I think he could get a win here and get back on track. But that's what I want to see from Blackshear, and a little bit more time off than 7 days, preferably.
Yeah, got to give him some time off now. Hopefully they pay my man good. And so give him some time off and give him a winnable fight next for sure.
Absolutely. And then back to Cheeto. My bad. Messed up the order there, but I'll let you take it away with Cheeto.
Cheeto opened this card, and I'm not going to say he opened it with a bang, but he opened it with a good win. So, the night played out just absolutely perfectly for Cheeto, if you really think about it. He got an easy win on the outside, just using his jab, not really taking any damage. Just a smart fight, a good win, 30-27 all around. Yeah. And then he got what he desperately wanted, which was Sean O'Malley to be the champ, because I feel like that's kind of probably his only path ever to probably getting a title shot was if Sean O'Malley got the title and he won Saturday night. So as much as he doesn't deserve it, and I would like to see maybe them rebook the Cejudo fight, which is Probably not a fight he would win. Let's be real, but it was a winnable fight maybe just because he's so much longer than Cejudo was. But as much as I'd like to see that rebooked, it's just perfect timing, and the storyline's there. You got to rebook Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera for the bantamweight title. It makes too much sense. Sean tried to avenge his only loss, and maybe in December, as the co-main for McGregor, that's what Sean O'Malley said he wants to do. It would be insane, a Conor McGregor Sean O'Malley card. Book it, please. But
just
I think
let
that's
Conor and Michael Chandler juice. We don't need them to pass any tests. It's fine.
Right. USADA unneeded for that one. Get them out of here, and make this pay-per-view. We all want to see it, and that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do here.
I'm with you there. I got Pedro Munoz against Adrian Yanez, I think, for his next fight. I like that matchup. Outside of the O'Malley no contest, Munoz has lost 5 of his last 7. You can't keep giving him fights up the rankings. It doesn't make sense considering he keeps losing these fights. So fight down to the rankings a little bit, take on a guy who's also coming off a loss in Adrian Yanez. And I like this matchup too. It'll be a stand-up. It'll be back and forth. I'm sure there'll be – I don't want to say there'll be a knockout since Pedro Munoz is involved. And, if Yanez wins, it's hard to imagine him sleeping Pedro Munoz. He doesn't go out like that. But I could see a lot of fun exchanges on the feet. I think one of these two guys is going to take a beating. It's going to be a fun fight. Pedro Munoz versus Adrian Yanez. I think that's the next fight to make.
And it just makes sense. You gotta fight down after 5 out of 7 losses. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know if all those losses were guys up in the rankings, but regardless, you can't keep giving him guys up in the rankings. I saw some big names when I was looking through his record, but just because of that cold streak, you can't give him fights up the rankings anymore.
Fair enough.
Not for a couple more wins. Moving on, we're gonna talk about UFC Singapore this Saturday. You got Holloway versus the Korean Zombie headlining it. Questionable matchmaking for Korean Zombie's retirement fight.
It is.
It all signs point to Holloway just putting the beats on him, kind of like Volk did. I'll just go ahead and get into my prediction. I think it's going to play out just like the Volk fight did. I think Holloway's just going to piece him up. Just crazy volume. His boxing's on another level. And the Korean Zombie doesn't have a lot of answers for him. He's just going to get outclassed and on the feet. And that's what the Korean Zombie, that's where he thrives. He doesn't have any elements of his game where he, outclasses Holloway. He doesn't have a lot of movement. He doesn't move around a ton like other fighters in that division do. So it's going to be a pretty easy target for Holloway. I think he's just going to piece him up and get him out of there by either standing TKO or he might get a knockdown late and the ref just steps in. I don't think he'll knock him out cold. That's very unlikely in my mind, but I think he just puts the beats on the Korean Zombie for, 3 or 4 rounds and the ref steps in.
And if we start getting into the 100 strikes to the head category, like we've seen in past Max Holloway fights, I think he's landed like 3,000 significant strikes in his career. He's number 1 in UFC history by thousands. Yeah. So if we see him put the beats like he always does, no matter who he's fighting, obviously, besides Volk, if he starts putting the beats on Korean Zombie, and Korean Zombie, what his strengths are, Max is better at. Yeah. So, what is a path to victory for Korean Zombie here? Just get lucky and catch Max and knock him out? That's never happened.
Nope.
So, what makes us think that 36-year-old Korean Zombie is going to come in his retirement fight and do it to Max? He's not. This fight makes no sense. We should have I know Korean Zombie said, it's my dream to fight Max Holloway or whatever in my retirement fight, blah, blah, blah. I wanted this fight. You can want it all you want, but, what's in store for you is maybe more brain damage on top of what Yair Rodriguez already did to you with that up elbow. There's no good that can come out of this for Korean Zombie. Yeah. I wish him the best in retirement after this, but I'm going to go Max Holloway 3rd round TKO. And not because I think he's going to knock him out, but because I want it to happen, because I don't want to see 5 rounds of abuse.
just to get him out of there quicker, just put him down early.
Yes.
Wrap this up.
Put him out of his misery.
I'm with you on that, man. Moving on to the co-main event, Anthony Smith versus Ryan Spann. Anthony Smith looked kind of sloppy in his last fight against Johnny Walker. Didn't look too good. And then Ryan Spann, very hit or miss. He's got that knockout power, but he's also been caught before. Oddly, he looked pretty good on the ground in his last fight. I don't know. That was. I'm trying to think of who he fought. I can't remember off the top of his head. Was it?
Well, he got subbed, didn't he?
Yeah. Was it Rakic?
No, Rakic is injured.
Okay. I remember, but
you're
it
talking about
was
Spann,
not
right?
what.
You're talking about Spann, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember who subbed him, but it was not good. He looked kind of defenseless on the ground. So
yeah,
I don't know.
There were some exchanges where Spann had some like reverses stuff. It was just weird. It was a
Yeah.
very weird fight. So Spann's kind of confusing. It's hard to get a read on him when he fights. But I think he puts Anthony Smith out of there. I think he gets a pretty early knockout. Smith at the end of his career, we know that. This is a rematch between these two guys, but I got Spann winning in the second fight as opposed to the first one.
And it's a rematch that is like 2 years apart. So realistically, it should be Spann that's getting better.
Yeah,
which he has.
The age factor.
Yes, the age
factor.
And Anthony Smith has had some bad injuries and just a pathetic performance really against Johnny Walker in his last fight. And he was like calling him out for some reason mid-fight. You remember? Like no reason, no beef at all. He just wanted to create a personal beef with him, I guess. So Anthony Smith stinks, but I still think he could sub Ryan Spann here. It's not going to start like a career resurgence for him by any means. I just think, Spann is easy to get subbed sometimes. And I can just see Anthony Smith getting his neck, whether it's a guillotine or rear naked, something. And I think as the first fight went between these two, I think Anthony Smith will take it again by sub. Maybe in the second round. I don't know.
Fair. Yeah, we'll see. One of us is going to come out on top in this one. Yeah, man. I just with what we saw from Anthony Smith in his last performance, he just looks like a different fighter. He's old. His time's coming. I think this could be his last fight, especially if he loses.
No doubt.
Yeah. Either way, I don't think this fight goes the distance. So, as long as we get a finish, it should be exciting. That's all I can ask for on fight nights. I don't really, the fights don't have a ton of meaning. I just want to see excitement. So if we can get an exciting fight out of this one, I'm happy.
Especially with some big boys like that. Let's get a KO. Yeah.
Some light heavyweights. Yeah, get a knockout and get a cool sub maybe if you're Anthony Smith. Who knows? Moving on, third to last fight on this card, on the main card, Giga Chikadze versus Alex Caceres. Chikadze's back after a loss against Calvin Kattar. Caceres has looked solid as of late. This is an interesting fight. I like the stand-up exchanges between these two. Obviously, Chikadze is really good on the feet. Caceres, he looks solid on the feet too, but he also has some ground game. He has this threat of a submission, which I think could play a big role in this fight. How do you see this one going?
I do not want to see this one go to the ground personally. Just because
that'll be trouble for Giga if it does go to the ground.
Of course. But just because they're both so technically amazing on the feet, really. I mean, they do kicks and spinny shit that will just pop out to you. I mean, especially Caceres. So Giga's always got that left body kick that can, devastate anybody. And he calls it the Giga kick. He named the kick after himself, the Giga kick. So if you can name a kick after yourself, you're doing something right. So that's personally how I see this fight going. I think he gets him down on the Giga kick. He needs a win so badly, Giga does, because this was like once a pretty high prospect. And then, Kattar just embarrassed him really. But he needs this win badly, and it's a winnable fight, especially if it stays on the feet. And I think he does get him out of there in the first round. I really do. Yeah, first round. I can see it.
Yeah, he needs a big performance on Saturday night because, like you said, he was Saturday morning, actually. Let me correct myself because we're getting up early for this one. Giga, he needs a win bad. He needs a win bad after that Kattar fight because he was a big prospect. Was a big prospect in that division. So there's much need to win. Unfortunately, though, I got Caceres winning. I think it'll go to a decision. I think I have Caceres winning. He has that ground game, which will give Giga trouble if it goes to the mat. That's what I'm worried about for Giga. And I think there's a chance that Caceres subs him. There's the threat of that because Caceres has it in his game. But ultimately, I think he'll win off points. I think he'll take Giga down and control him for a round, maybe even two. And I think he'll do enough in those exchanges to win the fights off points. I don't think it'll be a convincing, dominant decision, but I think a 2-1 decision for Caceres is what I'm predicting here.
And I'm fully going off. I feel like Giga kind of has a size advantage here, and he's just going to be the bigger guy. He can stay at range more because Caceres, as scary as he is with those spinning kicks, you got to get in close to land them, right? So Giga's this fight should be leg kicks and body kicks galore. And what's he better at than that? So go in there, get a big win, get back on track because you're getting old, bro. And you're a prospect, like a big prospect in this division. And this is a fucking division that needs more prospects. We're talking about fast tracking Topuria to Volk because there's no one he can fight. And obviously we don't want him fighting Max because Max will beat him. So it's like, what do you do in this division? We need more prospects. Guys, get to winning, and that's for you, Giga Chikadze.
Yeah, featherweight most certainly needs that. Moving on to a fight I'm really excited for. Aaron Blanchfield versus Tyler Santos. Santos looked great in her fight against Shevchenko, arguably won. If you look back at it, Shevchenko probably won that fight, but it was really close. You can make a case for Santos winning. And I'm excited to see what happens when this fight goes to the mat. Obviously, Blanchfield, her last 3 wins have come by submission. She is scary when it goes to the ground. And Santos, she got a submission win over Joanne Wood to get her that title shot against Shevchenko, and she looked good on the ground against Shevchenko. So I'm excited for when this fight goes to the mat, how it plays out. Personally, I got Blanchfield continuing that submission streak. I think sometime late in round 2, she sinks in a submission and beats Santos by submission. Sorry.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm a big Aaron Blanchfield truther. I think she is a little small compared to Talia Santos, so that could be an issue for sure, especially, with that top control that she's going to get, we assume, when she takes her down. Good old American wrestling, right? She'll get her down and get in her guard. But you got to watch out for those long, lanky legs of Talia Santos because she is a Brazilian woman, and we know – I mean, they're scary off their back and on the feet. She has power on her feet, too. If this stays standing, I actually give the advantage to Talia Santos. So there's a lot of factors in this fight that Aaron Blanchfield needs to look out for. But she's such a good prospect, and she's so young that I want to see her go out there and get it done and be in the title picture in this division. I mean, open arms for who's going to be the champ in this division. We get the title fight next month. So this is a good fight. This is probably a number 1 contender fight. I don't know about Santos if she won, but I definitely think if Aaron Blanchfield wins this, how do you deny her the title shot at that point? So big fight, and I'm going to go Blanchfield 2nd round sub, same as you.
Yeah, I think in regards to Santos possibly getting another title shot, I think that could be a possibility if she wins this fight because Blanchfield's a great prospect. I mean, she's very she's very highly regarded in the UFC world. So if she goes out there and beats Blanchfield, especially if it's a pretty dominant performance, I definitely think she gets a title shot next. I think she either gets that rematch against Shevchenko because of how close it was, or she gets a shot against Grasso.
Yes, I mean, it was such a close fight. People had Santos winning even on some scorecards. So definitely run that one back if Valentina's the champ. I don't know about if Grasso's champ. Maybe you just do Valentina and Talia too on like a fight night or something for a number 1 contender at that point. But yeah, it's a big fight for both these ladies because the title is right there to grasp.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the fight that opens up the main card this Saturday, Junior Tafa versus Parker Porter. I don't have much to say about this one other than that I think it'll play out just as it did when Parker Porter fought his brother. I got Tafa winning by round 1 knockout. Porter is a slob with all due respect. The only thing he has going for him is that he fought John Jones in 20 or I don't even know how.
I don't know.
It was so long. It's not even relevant. Yeah, Parker Porter's going to get put out of there early. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this one.
Do you want me to say? I mean, he stinks. So
yeah, I don't know how
Justin Jr., whatever the fuck his name is, the top brothers. They could both knock him out on the same night. And then I don't know. I mean, why is this on a main card? Get this off my fucking face.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, Junior Tafa by round 1 knockout.
I want Chitty Bang Bang on this main card, but he ain't on it, so unfortunate.
Tafa he just fought Mo Usman and lost, which that was a terrible fight by Usman, so I can't really hold it over Tafa's head. I mean, that was just Usman
being a roid head,
holding him in the clinch and just laying on top of him whenever he got him on the ground.
Being a roid merchant, yeah,
and being juiced. Yeah, I think Tafa bounces back. I don't see him going far in the UFC. But Parker Porter stinks, and so does every heavyweight outside of like the top 10. So yeah, this is just gonna be a terrible. I mean, these guys suck. This shouldn't be a main card fight. What are we doing? Why is this on the main card?
It shouldn't be a UFC fight.
No, no.
There's so many horrible heavyweights. This division stinks. We want elite fighters in the heavyweight division, and they don't exist. So
no.
What can you do, man?
Two bums fighting. At least we're gonna see a knockout, I guess. I guess that's the reason it's on the main card, is they're opening it up with a knockout. That'll be cool. Give the Singapore crowd something to be excited about as the main card goes on.
Get to see some. They don't see a lot of fat people in Singapore, so
yeah.
They'll get to see some big boys swinging some leather.
Yep. I was about to say I'm excited for it, but I can't really say that. So it'll be a round one knockout in my mind for Tafa.
Agreed.
Not much else to say. Yeah, not much else to talk about in the news cycle. Possible December card. That's something you touched on earlier. We'll get into that a little bit more. Conor versus Chandler obviously would be the main event. That's what Conor's pushing for, but he says the UFC is not going to make it happen. I think that's mostly because he won't enter the USADA testing pool. And I just don't think that fight happens. I want to see something before I believe that fight happens. I know Conor keeps saying he's going to fight in December. I know he keeps saying the Chandler fight is back on. I know Chandler's game. I know he'll take that Conor fight, no question.
He's ready for a fight. He's ready to fight anybody.
He's ready to fight anybody, but he's especially ready to fight Conor because of that check that he'll get from that. And then O'Malley, Cheeto as a co-main. That'd be a hell of a card.
Injected into my veins. I mean, any Conor card. They always make Conor McGregor cards horrible because, like, why put good fights on it? You know, McGregor's going to sell pay-per-views no matter what. But fuck that shit.
Yeah.
You know, Cheeto and Sean should not be headlining a pay-per-view. So why not put it as the co-main, rightfully, under Conor McGregor? It makes perfect sense. You want Sean O'Malley to be the next McGregor, so why not put him right under, let him put on a dominant title win performance, and boom, you just made a big star, and he's on the same – he gets to be on a press conference with Conor McGregor. You know, like, it just makes too much sense, and that's why I know they won't do it, and I hate the UFC.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it seems too perfect. I mean, you know, like you said, they're trying to build up O'Malley to be the next McGregor. So you put him on the same card as him, that'd be perfect. Like you said at the press conferences, have both of them there, it'd be perfect. And it'd be a quick turnaround for O'Malley too. You know, he'd be getting back out there after not a long time. I mean, he just fought last Saturday. It wouldn't be the fastest turnaround, but we're talking about a pretty quick one to keep that momentum going, that star power going, and especially with the storyline, him going out there and avenging his only loss against Cheeto, and doing it all while being on the same card as Conor McGregor. It is perfect for the UFC. So
how could Dana not want it? How could Dana White not want that?
Yeah.
Do us right, or I'm gonna slander you more and more. You bald fuck. Make it happen, you TRT merchant.
We need it, man. That'd be exciting card and sell so much too. Yeah, Conor's not entering that USADA testing pool, so just let him do what he wants.
Give him the Brock Lesnar treatment.
Turn a blind eye to whatever Chandler's doing too. We know he's probably on some stuff. When you look at him, it's pretty clear. So let them take whatever they want. Hope they make 170, and let's get this thing going.
Exactly. It's the perfect scenario. It's too perfect. It needs to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, not much else to talk about in the UFC news cycle. Been a little bit dry this week. No big announcements or anything. So that'll take us to the end of UFC Casuals episode 5. If you tuned in this long, thank you. We're almost at an hour mark. We really long episode, our longest to date. So if you're listening right now, thank you so much for listening this far. And we're excited to catch back up next week.
If you're watching right now, comment Dana White is bald, and
we'll pin the comment.
Leave some comments, leave some love, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so thank you for tuning in, no matter how much you watched of it. And we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.